All right, hello everybody. Hello. I do have to find a way to make that not end so abruptly, but so CJ Grisham here with you, and I've got a special guest here, Not So Slim Jim. Jim, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually my first video in almost a month recovering from pneumonia, so I bless you with my presence.
That's two of us that have had pneumonia in the same year. Actually within a 30 days, I think, because
Yeah, well, my kid brought it home from school. I got an upper respiratory infection, so yay.
Freaking old guy. It's because you're old.
Okay, Grandpa, shut up. Look at your beard. Mine's still full of awesomeness.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about mainly today, and we're going to talk about a few other things, but the purpose of this video, and then we'll have other things afterwards, is, okay, there we go. Now we got people in there. Is to talk about the how HB 1927, which is the unlicensed carry, the constitutional carry, whatever you want to call it. It's the bill that made licensing essentially voluntary. And the Texas Municipal League has created a document that was updated. It was updated in June, but I'm just now finding it because I've been told that the Texas Municipal League is telling these municipalities that they can still put up 30-6 and 30-7 signs. And so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to go over what they have to say, and I'm going to read the actual HB 1927 law that is now law as of September 1st. So that, one, the Texas Municipal League understands, and two, so that you understand. And if you have an issue with your municipality, you can go there and argue with the facts. Okay. So the first things and then we're going to talk about Jim. Then we're going to move on to after that.
No, we're going to move on to signage. Yes, signage, and the changes that were made. Very subtle changes, but have big implications for people that carry, especially those who do not have a license to carry in the state of Texas. Oh, and CJ's wife is talking to him.
All right, yeah, sorry.
Don't worry, she's his good luck charm.
She's going to come and moderate for me in case I need it. So we're going to talk about the signage as well. And yes, thank you everybody that's out there right now in the chat room. As you can tell, I can speak again without coughing. Now I do get my coughing fits every now and then, so but they're not as bad as they used to be. I'm pretty much fully recovered. I am back home temporarily while I deal with some medical issues related to what I was dealing with, the blood clots and possible heart issue. So we'll find that out later, but don't worry about me. I'm fine. I've got first sergeant immunity. I will live. All right.
Yeah, not to be mistaken with qualified immunity.
Right. Okay, so the Texas Municipal League, they have a document out, and this document is called Local Governments and Firearms, Avoiding a Jam. And it's a really, really, really long document. You can find this on the TML website. The Texas Municipal League is essentially what provides cover and legislative updates to municipalities because they're too stupid to do it themselves. And it's a way for taxpayer money to get wasted by spending it on this Texas Municipal League. The Texas Municipal League also protects, in many ways, cities that abuse your rights and your authority. So anyway, that's who they are. So in their document on page 6, it's a 46-page document. On their document, they have a section called "In What Places is a Person Prohibited by State Law from Carrying a Firearm?" And again, these are the 1927 updates, the HB 1927 updates. And it goes through a person commits a third-degree felony if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly possess or goes with any firearm, whether or not they hold a license. And this is what they're trying to hang their hats on. Okay, this is what they're trying to hang their hats on because they even highlighted it on here. Whether or not they hold a license. Now, that's important because as I read through what they have to say, I'm going to show that this doesn't matter. This right here doesn't matter for the purposes of what we're going to talk about. And it goes through, of course, all the places that you're not allowed to have a gun. But the only one that I care about and that you and I care about is the open meeting, section 14. Okay, it's 4603 under the penal code, 4603A 14, alpha 14, which says that essentially it is, let me get to the exact spot. A person commits a third-degree felony if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly possesses or goes with any firearm, whether or not they hold a license, and you go to section 14, for an unlicensed carrier into the room or rooms where a meeting of a government entity is held, if the meeting is an open meeting subject to the Open Meetings Act, and if the entity provided notice about it as required. And it says, however, a license holder isn't prohibited from carrying into a meeting described above unless the entity provides notice that it is doing so is prohibited using a penal code 30.6, 30.7 sign. This is what they're telling people, that you can put up a 30.6, 30.7 sign. And ooh, my wife is giving us money. Thank you for the 99 cents. I can't hear you, Jim. Do I have you muted? No, I don't have you muted. Can y'all hear him out there? Or is it just me? It might just be me. Nope, nothing. Test, test. Can you guys hear him? I need to know if y'all can hear him because it might be me. No audio from Jim. Yeah, so it's you. Good. All right, I'm going to let you work on that while I continue to talk. And when you get it fixed, just start speaking. Now, they have a note. The Texas Municipal League has a note that says, prior to passage of HB 1927, a license holder could carry concealed or openly into an open meeting unless a government body had prohibited carry by posting a 30.6, 30.7 sign at the entrance to the meeting room while the meeting was taking place. Section 23 of the bill, which we're going to talk about, eliminated the notice requirement that used to be in the Penal Code section 46035. Nope, nothing yet. By virtue of a cross-reference to 46035. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. So, what they're saying and what they're telling the municipalities is, quote, this means that after HB 1927, 4603A14, when read alone, would mean that no one, licensed or not, could go into an open meeting with a handgun, period. And then they say, but wait, there's more. And here's their next paragraph. And this is what we're going to debunk right off the bat. And that is that it says, and I'm quoting, section 4603A14 is an absolute prohibition that cannot be waived by the government body or anybody else. But importantly, a non-applicability list in 4615B6, which we're going to talk about because that's section 25 of HB 1927, also includes, quote, a person who holds a license to carry and the handgun is concealed or in a holster. So what the TML is saying is, quote, that section takes the prohibition full circle to where it actually allows a license holder to carry into an open meeting unless the government body has posted the usual penal code. Hang on, let me see if, hang on. Okay, I can't unmute your mic because you chose to mute yourself. Oh, okay. So that's what they're telling people. All right, that's what I wanted to bring up. Is that it says it brings it full circle to where it actually allows a license holder to carry into an open meeting, quote, unless the governmental body has posted the usual 30.6, 30.7 signs discussed in more detail below, because they start talking about the signs, prohibiting them from doing so. Okay, so the TML thinks that it's an absolute prohibition. I have got HB 1927 on me. If you want to read this, let me go into, I'm gonna provide for you a link so that if you would like to read the HB 1927 yourself, you may do so. Here's the link in the chat, so you can kind of follow along. What you want to do is when you open that. Oh, for some reason it didn't let me post that on OCT. So if you're watching on the OCT stream, for some reason it might not have let me post that. It says an error occurred on YouTube. This is usually temporary. Wait a moment and then try again. Let me try this again. And it might do it again. Let's see. Okay, it went through that time. I don't know why. Okay, so the Open Carry Texas stream should have that as well. And go ahead and skip to section 23, because now I'm getting into the nuts and bolts of how this works. Now, let me stop before I go any further, because I'm going to make some suggestions, some encouragements, give you some advice. But the advice that I'm giving you is not legal advice. I am not an attorney. This video is being shared in my capacity as the president of Open Carry Texas. All right, that's it. President of Open Carry Texas. So this is not legal advice. What I'm telling you as an activist, and I'm telling you with respect to my knowledge of how the law is constructed and how to read it. Now, obviously, I do have training in how to read laws and how to decompose them and how to defend against them and how to prosecute against them. But I'm not giving you legal advice. So section 23, the rest of it, don't worry about 1 through 22, because that has nothing to do with this. We're going to talk specifically tonight about the Open Meetings Act. So as you know, before 1927, any entity could, if they wanted to, post a 30.6 or 30.7 or both sign to prevent citizens who come into an open meeting. And again, it's got to be an open meeting in accordance with chapter 551 of the government code, which, you know, there's got to be notice, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. They could post a 30.6 sign if they didn't want concealed carry. They could post a 30.7 sign if they didn't want open carry, or they could post both if they didn't want either carry. And of course, that's with a license holder. Now the law is different because it allows, you don't have to have a license. And the law is very specific that you cannot carry without a license into an open meeting if they're posted, right? So section 23 says 4603, which if you look up Penal Code 4603, that's the section that says places weapons prohibited. And it gives you a long list of places that weapons are prohibited. So 4603 now reads, okay, it now reads, a person commits an offense, and this is subsection A. A person commits an offense if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly possesses or goes with a firearm, location-restricted knife, club, or prohibited weapon listed in section 4605. Then it gives you a long list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes all the way down. And the one that we're concerned about today is 14. So it's Penal Code 46.03A14. So it is, the law says now that you commit an offense if you carry a firearm into number 14 in the room or rooms where a meeting of a government entity is held, if the meeting is an open meeting subject to chapter 551 government code, and if the entity provided notice as required by that chapter. Okay. That's 46. Check. There you go. We got you. We can hear you now, Jim.
Yeah.
All right. So
new
that's
audio equipment. Gotta love it.
Like TML said, if all you read was that, then you would think, okay, they can ban guns, right? Not the case. Not the case. Now go, if you're following along, go to section 25. And the rest of section 23 is just again, all the additions and deletions, but we're specifically homing in on the Open Meetings Act. Section 25 says that under B, so it's 4615 B6. All right, and 4615 is essentially who is exempted from the provisions of 4603. So 4615, so it's 4603 says you can't carry in all these places. 4615 says unless you are this person or that person, like law enforcement and all that kind of stuff, or unless you're traveling, it doesn't bother you, but you're not going to be traveling while you're at an open meeting, so don't worry about that. But if you go to B6, it says, let me go back, Section B, Section 4603A14, which is the one that says they can ban you from having a gun if they provide signage, right? So sections 46A14 does not apply to a person who, go down to number 6, is carrying a license issued under subchapter H, chapter 411 government code to carry a handgun, and part B is a handgun in a concealed manner or in a holster. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these all together instead of with all of this together. So a person commits an offense if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly possesses or goes with a firearm, location restricted knife, club, or prohibited weapon listed in 4605A in the room or rooms where a meeting of a government entity is held if the meeting is an open meeting subject to chapter 551 government code if the entity provided notice. Section 46A14 that I just read does not apply to a person who is carrying a license issued under subchapter H, chapter 411 government code to carry a handgun and a handgun in a concealed manner or in a holster. So I don't know where they're getting off on going back and saying that it brings you full circle, because it doesn't in any way whatsoever bring you back full circle.
This has actually already been brought up too in Bruceville, Eddy. Brent McCain was up there, and the city tried saying that they could still put 30-06, 30-7 signs up, along with the fact that, obviously you can't carry into a meeting with a 30 with it not being licensed to carry. And he spoke with the chief of police, and he provided them with the law and the clarification and everything. And the chief of police actually went and spoke in one of the city council meetings and basically told them, hey, I'm not going to arrest anyone because the law clearly states that you can't ban people. So you can put the signs up all you want to, but they have no legal ramifications.
Well, and what's interesting here is the TML in their letter, right? They added, remember what I said when I went over here, when they're talking about it's a 3rd-degree felony, knowingly or recklessly with any firearm, and then they added that part here that says whether or not they hold a license. That is not in the law anywhere, whether or not they hold a license. That doesn't say anything. I am on right now the actual Capitol website where you can look up any statute. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. And once again, I have an error on YouTube and on Open Carry Texas, and I don't know why. So.
Yeah, like I was, like I said before,
there you go.
Audio right. Went to crap. About a month ago, I put a video out covering the same thing, and with the verbiage changes in the Open Carries Meeting Act and everything, it once again now they basically shot themselves in the foot if they want to do it. But if you have a license to carry in Texas, they can no longer restrict you from going to open meetings. And this has been already kicked down in Austin. They're like, oh, well, we don't care what the law says. But it's been brought up in multiple city councils already. And even though these guys want to say, hey, here's our view of it and here's what we think of it, that doesn't actually change what the law says.
Yeah. So what I want to do now is I want to show you on the screen here, and I'll just bring this up. This is the actual law as it stands. Okay. Keep in mind, the TML is saying regardless of whether you have a license, whether you have a license or not. You know, they even highlighted it on their form. It doesn't say anywhere in here. This is the intro section of 4603. It doesn't say anywhere here whether or not you have a license. It just says a person commits an offense if you carry a firearm, okay, and to one of these places. Here's the little colon here. All right. And of those places, you've got, schools. But if you go down to 14, in the room or rooms where a meeting of a government entity is held, if the meeting is an open meeting subject to whatever, and the entity has provided notice as required by that chapter. And what this is talking about notice, obviously, in order to have an open meeting, you have to provide notice of that meeting. This doesn't mean notice of a 30-6 or 30-7 sign. That's not what this provided notice means. This provided notice is specifically talking about the notice provisions that are in Chapter 551 of Government Code. Okay, Penal Code 30.06 and 30.07 is what covers the notice required by political subdivisions. Okay, now if you go down to 4615, let me just make it quick here. 4615. If you go down to non-applicability, the chapter 4615 of the government code, the penal code, it says sections 4603 and 4602 do not apply. But don't worry about that. We're going to section, because that's section A. We're going to go down to section B. And this is the one that specifically highlights, dang it, I think I clicked on that. Okay, no, I didn't. 4603A14. Y'all remember what that was, right? That's the open meetings area. So 4603A14 does not apply to a person who is carrying a license. Now, keep in mind, you've got to be carrying this license. You can't just have a license. You can't just say I'm licensed.
Yeah, which in Texas, to be able to carry with a license as a license holder, like before this went into effect, to be able to carry without a license, even if you had a license and you were carrying and oops, I forgot my license at home, technically you could be charged of carrying unlawfully. So
that's right.
Yeah,
so if you carry without a license,
well, I mean, now you don't got to worry about it, but now if you're going to go into a meeting, make sure you have your license on you.
That's right. So it does not apply. Let me go back up here. Section 4603A14 does not apply to a person who is carrying two things. Okay, you got to be carrying two things. If you're carrying a license, in other words, your LTC, your license to carry a handgun,
either
and
Texas or a state that's recognized.
That's right. And a handgun. So if it's one or the other, it doesn't matter. If you're carrying a handgun but you don't have the license, you're in violation. If you're carrying the license but you don't have a handgun, it doesn't matter. Because then it doesn't matter at all.
Now, two questions that are in the comments section while he's covering up that. Bradley, can you put this in the layman's terms? Basically, city open meetings can no longer legally put up 30-6 or 30-7 signs. So people who have a license to carry either from Texas or another state can carry into these into open meetings, and they're no longer supposed to be able to legally restrict them. But you cannot carry into an open meeting without a license. It is 100% illegal to carry a firearm into an open meeting if you do not have a license.
That's right. And so and they don't have to put up a 30-5 sign for that.
No, they don't. It's just automatically legal. Rajpat, if I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. What about a city hall that shares buildings with a jail or municipal court and school meetings? Okay, so you have what's called a multi-use building. So if you have a jail that is a jail and nothing but a jail, you cannot carry a firearm in there. That is a no-go. And if it's a prison or even like a major, like a county jail, you can't even carry onto the ground. That's covered in the law. You can't do that. But if you have, let's say, you said a city hall that also has a tax collector, holding cell, things of that nature, you can still carry your firearm in there, but you can't carry into what's called a restricted area. So if they go to the police department, they have an area where it goes restricted area on the door, or where you go into the part where they actually hold people, you cannot carry into that section of the building because that part of the building is in fact illegal to carry in. But the rest of the building you can. Now, some places still haven't got that through their thick skull, like here in Bell County, where they still have metal detectors for the whole building, but they're also paying an enormous amount of money every month to have those up because they keep getting fined by the state.
Now, Rajpat also had a question about school board meetings, and I want to talk about that. So I brought up onto our screen here, back to 4603, Penal Code 4603. And if you look, the first place that you're not allowed to have a gun is on the physical premises. What's the premises, Jim?
Of a school.
No. What is a premises?
Oh, premises is on the grounds or inside the building.
And the premises itself is a building. It does talk about the grounds later, but the premises is the building itself of a school or educational institution. Is the school board a school? No. Is the school?
Depends if they're doing the school. If they're doing the school board at the school itself.
No. Jim, let me break this down, and then we'll do layman's terms. All right.
Okay. I'll make it hard on you.
Is the school board a school? No. Is the school board an educational institution? No. It is a political institution that manages the schools and the educational institutions. So
they are elected officials.
That's right. So now getting to what Jim said, unless the school board is meeting at a school or an educational institution or on any grounds, well, that doesn't matter because, I mean, they'd have to be having an activity there. Then, yes, this applies to school board meetings. It applies to every single open meeting of a political subdivision, whether it's at the school board level, the city level, the water board level, legislature, it doesn't matter. If it's an open meeting subject to Chapter 551, which school boards are, then there you go. It's no longer banned if you have a license to carry on there. Now, if that school board meeting is on school property, okay, you cannot carry into that school board at all, license or no, because it's on
the last question you just put up, for example, purpose. Let's say it's at a school administration building. That is still considered part of the school district and part of school property, so you can't carry there.
Yeah, if it's part of the school building, right. Now, like, for example, in Temple here, and actually in Waco and in many places, the school board meets at a completely different location. They have like in Temple, it's downtown Temple, whereas Temple High School and all the other schools are spread out throughout the city. Yeah, Jim, it says you've got some nasty clicking on your mic. I guess it's worse for them than it is for me. I can hear it, but it's not that bad.
Is it better now?
I'll let them to answer that thing there. So there's your answer to that is, if it's a school board building and it's not on school property, it's not a school. Look here, the physical premises of a school. So and let's say even that the school board property, because you got a small town, right? If you're in like a really small town and maybe the school board or the ISD administrative building is right next to the high school, if that's not a school, then you're fine because it's the physical premises of a school. And the ISD building, even if it's right next to a school, would not be a school premises. And remember, the premises is the building or portion of a building. Someone had asked a little earlier about a multi-use facility, and here's how, and this goes for police stations too. Just because a police station has a jail does not mean that building is a jail, because there are some places where the police station has one or two cells. I don't know, Almost Park, where the same building has two cells, a police department, the city secretary, the utilities, I believe they do there as well, and all kinds of other stuff. But just because there's a jail there doesn't mean the entire building. Just the portion of the building that is the jail is prohibited. Now, here's where you get into some. Here's where you get into some legal. I don't know. Here's where you get into some legal weirdness. Okay, you get into some legal weirdness when the entrance to the jail is the same door as the entrance to the police department. There is a legal argument to be made, and I think a legal defense to be made, although it hasn't been argued in court yet, that, you know, a city would probably try to argue, well, because this is the entrance to the jail and this is where we bring inmates in, or this is where we bring detainees in, because they're not inmates yet, they're just detainees. Since this is where we bring detainees in and this is where we release detainees, this building is subject to the prohibition under 4603. I would say no. Obviously, I would fight that as an attorney, but it's an argument that you have to be aware of, and it's a risk that you have to decide whether or not you want to take that risk. But it's very, very rare, even in small towns, that they're going to take detainees to their 1 or 2 cells that they have through the same door as the door they use for city council meetings or for city secretary access or
there's a defense
utilities
to that too, because the law says that any public area. So
Yeah.
if there's a public area where you walk into the police station and they have a counter there where you're able to get forms, and that happens to be the same door that they bring people in, let's say that they arrested and bring them back to cell holding areas, that they could say that the prohibited or the secure area doesn't start until past the counters. So that's really a hard one for that. But DW, you said you wish police stations had gun lockers who are doing for people doing business there. That actually is part of the new laws that passed this year, saying that public buildings can now put up lockers so people can store their firearms for when they're going into restricted areas. So let's say they go to a police station and they're armed, but they say, hey, can you come back here to fill out a report or talk to us? But you can't legally enter to the area. You can put your weapon into a locker so that way you can legally go into the secured area, come back out, retrieve your firearm, and then leave.
Correct. I was looking for the actual law that they're supposed to, if they're bringing you into a secure area and you're there kind of on your own, they can't disarm you unless they provide a secure area for your firearm to be placed. So if you go to a police department and you're doing so voluntarily, and they say, "Hey, let's go back to my office," or "Let's go back here," and it's a secure area, just let them know, "Hey, I've got a firearm. Do you have a secure locker?" But I know locally, my police chief doesn't. I mean, he lets me go in even into the secure area with my firearm, but he also knows me personally, so. They can, if they want to, disarm you in a secure area, but to do that, they have to have and I'm talking legally, they have to have a storage locker or a secured place for your firearm. What I would do is I would say, no, I'm not going to disarm. We can meet out here or in a different place, but I'm not going to go in somewhere where you're going to tell me to take my gun off, because I don't want you guys running my guns. You don't know what they're going to do with that firearm. Yeah, they might place it in a secure locker after they run your serial number. And I don't want my guns.
If they got a locker with like one of those ones where you put it in there, you take a key, that might be cool.
Yeah, but you don't think they got a master key for that?
Well, yeah, but at that point, then, if I find out that they did take my firearm and they ran it for serial number, I could find that as, unlawful possession of a firearm or violation of my Fourth Amendment rights in the lawsuit. Because if they don't have permission to take it, and I didn't give them permission to take it, because there's nowhere in the law that says that they can go and examine your weapon and run serial numbers or do anything of that nature. So they're doing that. That's a massive violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Well, and I'll tell you this as well. You can be doing everything right. You can be following every law, doing nothing illegal, and you can still end up in a jail cell under arrest.
I was there with you, remember?
How do I know that? Okay.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
Well, so let's transition. So let's transition into signage.
Okay, yeah, because one of the big ones, a lot of people are talking about the 30-5 sign, and a lot of people don't realize that there is some very subtle changes to the law for not just 30-5, but for the 30-6, 30-7 sign, because it used to be very clear. It had to be this exact wordage, had to be certain size letters, had to be on the front of every entrance, and it had to be, had to be either black and white or so and so, and it was very clear in what it had to say and how it had to be presented. But they made changes to it to make it easier for private parties or private businesses to be able to post their signs. The issue is in the process of doing so, they made it very difficult for people to be able to spot them. So now it no longer has to have the exact verbiage. It just has to have close enough verbiage. And it no longer has to be directly on the exterior of the building by the front door. It can be somewhere in the general vicinity. So it can be inside the building on a sign or behind a chair, as long as it's supposed to be visible. And there's no definition of what visible is, just as long as they say it's visible. So you can go into a business and there can be no 30-5 sign outside. You walk in and you don't spot the sign that's maybe pink with black letters and it doesn't say exactly what it's supposed to say, but it says something along the general lines. By law, that's legal now. And that's the big issue we're coming across. And it's not just for 30-5. They changed the same wording for 30-6 and 30-7, which they got rid of the oopsie law, which before, if you accidentally missed a sign, they would just go, okay, well, we're asking you to leave, you leave, we can't charge you. Now they can charge you. So if you miss a sign that was purposely placed inside a building in a not very, reasonable location, that's a weird colored sign that doesn't have the exact verbiage, it doesn't have the big 30-6, 30-7, you can still be charged with a crime because some business didn't put a sign up properly. And that's a big issue I'm having.
Yeah, and what I want to do really quick is let me go back to bring up my screen here because I found what I wanted to share before. Okay, man, all these things I got to go through. Okay, so this is Article 1403, authority of peace officers, and if you go down to 4603H, there it is. And this was for
sound too.
Yeah. It says a peace officer who is acting in the lawful discharge of the officer's official duties may temporarily disarm a person when the person enters a non-public secure portion of a law enforcement facility. If so, look, he may temporarily disarm a person if the law enforcement agency provides a gun locker or other secure area where the peace officer can secure the person's handgun. And then he shall return the handgun to the person immediately after the person leaves the non-public secure portion. Now, what is what's the law enforcement facility? Let me bring that up here. A law enforcement facility is a portion of a building. So anyway, you know what that is. It's just a police station. So there you go.
A secured area of the police station, not a public area.
Only a secured area. Only a secured non-public area. If it's a public area, they can't disarm you. Okay,
yes,
that's the law.
That's lobby or the community center or any area that's open that doesn't have a door that's locked or says secured area or authorized personnel only or some kind of sign saying don't come in here. They can't stop you. You can carry in there. I mean, I'm not saying they won't try to stop you in some of these hoboing towns, but technically they're not supposed to.
Yeah, and just so y'all know, that's the Article 1403 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. I just put the link to that in chat as well, so that you have that. But I wanted to bring that up since it was something that was asked about. All right, so the signage. Where were we? Before I rudely interrupted you.
No. It was a good impasse. The changes they had made to make it more difficult for people who are legally carrying to know whether or not they restrict it in a private area. Now they can't put it up. I mean, they still do. Once again, there's a big difference between the law and what people actually do. Because you're not supposed to restrict it in a public area like a city hall or any area that belongs to the city or state. They're not supposed to be able to restrict unless it falls into certain restrictions, or if you're on a petroleum refinery plant or even the grounds to, or in the grounds to any prison or jail. Those are obviously no-go areas, just like schools. The only time you can carry on to school is if it's in your vehicle. That's it. And even then, I believe you can only do that if you have a license. Can you not?
Yeah, you can only legally go within 1,000 feet. Now, unless you're traveling, there's a traveling exemption in federal law. But if you don't have a license in the state where the school is located, then you can't go within 1,000 feet of a school. Under Texas law, if you have a license, you can literally walk right up to the front door if you wanted to. I don't recommend it, but you can walk right up to the front door and not be breaking any laws. And what I mean by in the state where the school is located, if you have a Texas license and you go to Oklahoma, that 1,000-foot restriction counts. Even though that license is recognized in Oklahoma, the law only exempts you from the School Zone Act if you're in the state where the license was issued. So only around Texas schools if you got a Texas license, Oklahoma schools if you got an Oklahoma license, and those kinds of things. And I'll tell you this.
Post.
Now, hang on. Also, here's another quirk in federal law. If you don't have a license, the law does not apply to you if you are carrying a firearm that has not entered into interstate commerce. So if you've got a firearm that was built and sold within the state that you're in, that's intrastate commerce, and the federal law doesn't apply to you because the federal law specifically says carrying a firearm that has engaged in interstate commerce. So, if you buy something from Sig Sauer or Springfield Armory and you live in Texas, well, that's interstate commerce because those firearms were built somewhere else. So that's another little thing. And so when I carry, even though I have a license now, I didn't get a license until constitutional carry, but since I have a license now, it doesn't matter. But even before I had a license, whenever I did my bike rides, even though I tried to avoid schools as much as possible in those signs, I would always carry a rifle that was built and sold that I bought here in Texas so that I wouldn't have to worry about if I accidentally stumbled within 996 feet of a school, because I knew that the cops probably had some kind of GPS tracker on me anyway, and they were just waiting for me to ping being within 1,000 feet of a school. But it didn't matter because even if I was, they would get my pistol or my rifle and say it would show, oh, look, this is not engaged in interstate commerce, therefore federal law doesn't apply. I'd probably still get arrested, but I'd win in court. So,
okay, Rose wants to know about the old signage for TABC. Okay, so those signs, they only consist of people who are illegally carrying now. So, for instance, in Texas, you can carry without a license as long as you are legally able to carry. So you have to meet a certain amount of restrictions on, like, you can't have this background, you can't have committed these crimes, you can't be a felon, so on and so on. So as long as you're legally carrying a firearm in the state of Texas, and that's with or without
licensed or unlicensed,
yep, that no longer pertains to you. But if you are, let's say, someone who's not able to legally carry a firearm, or you are a felon who's not legal to own a firearm and you're carrying one, and you go into a Walmart, a gas station, a liquor store, someplace of that nature, then that is, once again, a felony.
It's an increased penalty.
Yeah, increased felony, you get 10 years and so on. So the TABC signs you see, they're only for people who are unlawfully carrying a firearm. But for everyone else, it's perfectly fine.
And actually, those signs are no longer required anyway. They really mean nothing because the statute was repealed by HB 1927 that even ordered these signs to be posted. So those signs, you'll see them a lot in places that have had them up historically. I usually, when I go into a small business, I don't worry about Walmart. I don't really care. But when I go into a small business that sells alcohol, I'll let them know, hey, I just want to let you guys know you don't have to put up that blue sign anymore. And if you want to, use it for advertising space, you can take those signs down. If you just don't want your windows to look nasty with all this legalese stuff, you can take those signs down because they don't mean anything anymore. So the TABC sign, the blue sign about the carrying of alcohol is a felony, blah blah blah. It's gone. The sign doesn't legally exist anymore. But there are laws about unlawful carry at a place that sells alcohol.
Yeah, the only TABC line you really need to pay attention to is the 51% ones. Yeah, if you see 51%, do not carry into that establishment. That is automatically a felony, regardless if you have a license or don't have a license. The only people that can carry into his establishment are a law enforcement officer who is currently on duty. That is it.
And John's question about the black powder pistol, if it is a curio, a pre 1899 curio or replica black powder, it's not center fire. Although even if it is center fire, if it's pre 1899, it's not considered a firearm under the black powder is not considered firearm. So therefore they don't apply to 30-5, 30-6, 30-7 or anything. But do keep in mind under private property rights, they can tell you we don't want any projectile or anything that fires a projectile through the means of an explosive compound or something, whatever the wording is for that.
They can say no weapons, which that can fall into that category. Which we're talking about
these right here, man. You're banning my fists when you say no weapons. You're banning my words because my words is weapons.
I went into a liquor store a few months back.
Speech is assault.
Oh yeah, speech is violence now. I went into a liquor store. I was making some moon pie for a buddy of mine, and he had the 30-7 sign up, and I was talking to him about the new carry, and because he was a guy who owned the liquor store. It's a smaller place, nice guy. I've actually he owns a few of them, known him for decades plus now. And I was explaining to him about the law for 30-5, because if he doesn't want someone to open carry into his establishment, which is the only thing he doesn't like because it kind of freaks out the customers, but he doesn't mind concealed carry because he is a pro 2A guy. But the only way you can restrict someone without a license from open carrying is if you put up a 30-5 sign, but that technically restricts them from carrying at all because there is no split sign. The restrict someone from open carrying without a license, all you can do is a one size fits all sign. So we kind of had a conversation, and he's like, "Hey, what do I need to do if I don't want someone to open carry?" I told him the best thing to do is just put up a very simple, no open carry sign, just a generic one. And then if someone comes in open carrying and they say, "Oh, I don't have a license," and there's no 30-5 sign, just verbally tell them, "Hey, no open carry or leave my establishment." Simple as that. Just give them a verbal warning. And if they don't leave, then obviously at that point they're committing criminal trespass. So.
Yeah, and I just put a link in the chat. If you've got a StreamYard account and you want to ask a question live, we've got about 13 minutes left that I had allotted for this video. I didn't want it to be more than an hour, but if you want to come on and ask a question, you may do so, or you can just type it there in the chat on either the CJ Grisham or Open Carry Texas pages there, YouTube channels. What else was there I wanted to talk about?
Yeah, whatever did happen to those guys that were arrested out in West Texas last year? The ones like, "Oh, the cops are never going to take me alive," and all of a sudden, "Oh, I'm on the ground. Don't hurt me."
I've lost track of those guys. I think most of the charges have been dropped from the last I heard. But I know they were still there. The freaking sheriff was hanging on to something. But I haven't, because I started law school, so I haven't followed up on what was going on. I haven't had a chance to really keep tabs on that.
The guy in Portland, the one that had the group of like 50 people chasing him and he pulled his firearm out, they didn't drop the charges, but they lowered the penalty. So he got a conviction for it, but they basically gave him time served and a small fine. And I know Barnes took his case on after the fact, and they were trying to get that to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court, I think just yesterday or today, turned down his case because he wanted to go up and say, "Hey, I didn't commit a crime. I was protecting myself. I was legally carrying, and I had people with bricks and Molotov cocktails chasing me." But Supreme Court basically said because he already had his time served, and there's basically nothing to really do with his case, and because he wasn't still fighting it, that they just weren't going to hear it, which honestly is BS to me, but hey, whatever, Supreme Court, right?
Right. And now, one of the things I want to also bring up, because we talked about signs, we talked about the fact that even if you're not doing anything wrong, you can still end up with your ass in a cell. I highly recommend that you have some sort of legal protection. There are various ways to do this. The self-defense fund, of course, is for self-defense issues. So if you've got a self-defense issue, if you end up having to use your firearm in self-defense, you're going to want an attorney on your side just in case. We get calls, and full disclosure, I'm the membership director right now from Self Defense Fund, but I will be an attorney for Self Defense Fund once I graduate. So I just want to bring that up. But I don't get anything by telling you this, and I don't get anything by pushing you to join. So there's no financial incentive whether you join or not. But I highly recommend it. For $12.95 a month or $12.50 a month per person, it's not a bad thing to have that protection if you end up using your firearm in self-defense. You see it all the time. Look what Kyle Rittenhouse is going through right now. Kyle Rittenhouse is dealing with his self-defense issue. His case is costing
on Monday too.
Yeah, and they're really it's such nonsense. But
you can covering that on my channel.
Yes. Now, if you're worried about other types of, just having a lawyer, Law Shield, not Texas Law Shield, I'm talking about just Law Shield, has you can get, I don't know what their fees are, but I mean, if it's they provide legal assistance for anything, whether it's a divorce or a traffic ticket or whatever you want to use them for. They have caps and stuff and what you can use the money for, but at least you have an attorney ready if you're a Law Shield member as well. So what I recommend personally, self-defense fund for self-defense issues, because that's really bad. But what if you just get arrested and it's not self-defense, but you get arrested for something else? Now, I know that a lot of these groups like Texas Law Shield, Self-Defense Fund, and the others, they used to cover activism, but they can't anymore because people are doing stupid stuff. They wanted to do all that, but people were going out and intentionally causing problems and getting themselves arrested, and that wastes the money of the association to be able to defend people. So they had to go back to they've gone back to their contract, which only says self-defense issues. Okay, and that of course includes guns, knives, candlesticks, whatever you have to defend yourself with, a car, all that kind of stuff. All right, what about cities that still ban guns in parks? The cities cannot, under current law and previous law, cannot ban guns in parks if you have a license, period.
Unless it's a federal park.
Unless it's a federal. Well, no, even federal parks now you can carry as long as you have a license.
I was under the influence that if it's a federally owned, like for the what do they call it? The engineer lake, stuff like that nature, you still can't have them.
Well, Corps of Engineer property, you're not. I'm thinking of national parks. I thought you were talking about national parks.
No. Because I know in like the clean area, like right outside of Belton, they have the federal park right there, which is part of the Army Corps of Engineers. Can't carry there. Dana Peak Park is Corps of Engineers. Can't carry. There's a lot of them in this area because of Fort Hood, and all of those are big no. Can't go there because of it being part of the military property still. So,
yeah. And I'm going to answer this question. I'm pulling up. So the question is about what about AR-15s and all of that? Can they ban those? So I'm going to show you.
While he's doing that, I'm going to say one thing though. If you're going to go into, let's say, a park and there's a lot of families and kids and stuff there, and you're going to open carry a long gun, if you're going to do so, please make it very obvious that you're protesting. Have a shirt, have a flag, make it obvious. Don't walk into a park with an AK-47 and a baklava on and, full tactical gear, because your ass, especially here in Texas, is probably going to get shot by some mama trying to protect her cubs. That's not a smart thing to do. So if you're going to do that, be very apparent on what you're trying to do and don't be a dumbass.
So the direct answer to the question about carrying a AR-15 legally. So here's the law. It is local government code 229.001 and it talks about firearms. Okay. It says that a municipality may not adopt regulations relating to, this is how we fought the Olmos Park, the San Antonio, all over the state, those laws that they had that you can't have a loaded firearm, a loaded rifle in the streets or on the sidewalks because they weren't allowed to. The law didn't let them. But what this does is under section B of 229.001 of the local government code, it does not affect the authority of a municipality under the law to, and then skip down to number 5, regulate the carrying of an air gun or a firearm. So that includes BB guns. That includes BB guns and pellet guns and air rifles and stuff like that, or a firearm other than a handgun. So, in other words, this is where it shows that, yes, they can say no rifles, no shotguns, but they can't ban handguns at a public park. Okay. So, and of course, that talks about regulate the carrying of a firearm license to carry under 411. Now, so there you go. The answer is if it's a rifle and they say no firearms, that's that at a park. That's what it's referring to. It's referring to anything other than a handgun. And again, if you want that, here I will put that link to that law. You know, this stuff, these links that I'm giving you, what I did when I first became an activist, and once again, it is not letting me post to OCT. So I apologize for
you got to know city laws. Like I know here in Killeen, they're weird because their verbiage they have for the city ordinance when it comes to firearms, technically anything that projects a projectile out of a barrel is considered a firearm. So,
but if it's projected through an explosive, what's the word they use?
If it's explosive for they don't use it. They say anything that can be projected out of a barrel.
Oh, okay. Are you talking about
explosive force through air? So basically,
gotcha.
Shooting a gun in the air and shooting a soft air pellet in your backyard is the same thing to the city of Killeen.
Right.
So it's weird. You can't even shoot a bow in your backyard here.
But it's important that you take these laws, and what I did when I first started in my activism, and heck, Jim, I even had all these laws in my pocket in Almost Park, by the way.
I had them printed out. I tried to hand it to him.
Yeah,
I said no.
I had these all printed out. I used to carry all of this. I used to carry 229.001 of the government code. I carried 4602 and 4603 of the penal code. I carried government code 411, which is about the licensing. Penal. I did. I said penal. And I used to carry those because that way, first of all, I had to know the law, but then I could show it to them, you know, because you get those arrogant cops that talk about, oh, you think you're a lawyer? Well, I can read. Here's the law. I mean, it's not that hard to read. Look, here it is. So
we don't know all the laws, but the few we know very well.
I'm pretty good on the. I've learned a lot about walking down the wrong side of the road laws, and so I know everything about sidewalk. I know everything about sidewalk laws, jaywalking, as well as all the gun laws. Juan Mangas Mochas wants to know what was the conversation about military posts and bases and licensed carry. I know that if you're licensed, you can carry on property of Holbert Field. Do you want to take that, or you want me to?
As far as I know right now, the way the military is set up is if the post commander allows people to carry onto the post, they can regulate it. But like here in Fort Hood, the largest military post in the free world, straight up, no, can't do it. The only way you can bring a firearm on the post is if you register it. If you live, like you can have it if you live on the on-post housing. If you live in the barracks, you have to keep it in the armorer's room. If you want to bring a firearm on the post, you have to register it and you have to declare it, and it's a big pain in the butt process. But you can't just go on and off post with a firearm or carry a firearm around you while you're on post. But that, like I said, that's the post commander's decision to make. So there may be small posts like National Guard, Reserve, whomever, or even smaller active duty ones where they go, you know what? I know my guys are trustworthy. I'm going to allow them to carry that. They let that happen. I'm just not aware of any in my immediate area where they let that happen.
And this is my biggest complaint about Trump is that he could have fixed that and he didn't, and he intentionally didn't. And he specifically gave commanders that authority to be able to pick and choose which military bases you can carry on to. And from personal experience, let me give you this advice. Here's what I did. I went to Fort Hood back when this was passed. So I went to Fort Hood and I just wanted to know what the law was. So I go up to the gate and I let him know straight up front. I was like, hey, I'm licensed. I do have a firearm in the vehicle. I just want to know, am I allowed to carry onto Fort Hood with my firearm? If not, I'll just turn around and leave. I just needed to know what the policy was. They pulled me off into secondary screening. And thankfully, the sergeant was not an unthinking robot. But what the soldier, the PFC, had said was, we're supposed to arrest you. And I was like, well, I didn't come I told you guys I would not come on post if I'm not allowed to have a firearm, but you guys brought me over here. Yeah, but even if you just come to the gate, you're already on post. And so thankfully I had a good sergeant that had a brain and understood, one, what's the rule, but two, what's the good policy? And the good policy is, look, he meant no harm. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He wanted to find out, so let's just let him go. There's no sense in arresting the guy for no reason whatsoever. Find out before you go to a military installation whether or not they allow firearms if you have a license, okay? Because you risk getting arrested. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, I think what saved me was my first sergeant ID card. That's probably what saved me, was my rank privilege.
Yeah, but trying to do it onto Fort Hood where we had two mass shootings.
Yeah.
A little iffy on that.
All right. Is there still a lawsuit against Olmos Park? Yes, there is. What are the requirements for the new signs? I'm gonna let you handle that because you wanted to bring that up.
Actually, the new requirements, you can actually just Google 30.5, 30.6, 30.7. But yeah, it's has to be 1-inch lettering, has to have the certain verbiage or close to the certain verbiage, has to be either at the door or somewhere in a conspicuous area near the door, which can be even inside the building now. And it has to be in English and Spanish. So it's really very iffy. So like I said, it's not like before where it has to be right there at eye level within a certain amount of feet from the door and contrasting colors like black and white and all that. It's not like that anymore. But if you Google search it, it's pretty easy to look up. We're trying to cut this down because we're almost out of time. But yeah, it's not what it is. I'm actually going to put a video out here in the next couple of days. It really digs into the detail versus what the old verbiage is versus the new verbiage. So just check out my channel, Not So Slim Jim, and I'll have a more detailed video on the signage.
And here's I brought this up as well. So under 30.5, notice, for a notice to be effective, it's got to be on a sign or posted on the property at the entrance of the building. It's got to have oh wait, no, those are purple paint marks. Hang on, let me get to the firearms section.
Yeah, it's not all in the same space anymore. They put it in different areas.
Yeah, it's all over the place now. Good golly, which section was? Here we go. Crud. It's under 30.5. Where's the language at? Possession of a fire is offense. Golly. They make this stuff so, but I wasn't ready for this. Oh, here it is right here. Okay, here it is. Notice for firearm under 30.5, which is unlicensed carry, includes language that is identical to or substantially similar to the following. So no longer, by the way, because they added these words substantially similar, you can no longer argue, oh, well, they didn't do it word for word the way it was. Pursuant to 30.5 Penal Code, criminal trespass, a person may not enter this property with a firearm. And it must be included in both English and Spanish, as Jim said. It must be in contrasting colors with block letters at least 1 inch in height, and it must be displayed in a conspicuous manner, clearly visible to the public. And I'll just tell you, I'm not going to go into it for 30.6 and 7, but it's the same. It's contrasting colors, block letters, 1 inch in height at least, and displayed in a conspicuous manner where it's clearly visible to the public. So 30.5, 30.6. Oh, there you go. Town decks. I wish I'd have seen that earlier. 30.5C and then 30.6 and 7. Those are, so they didn't change it. They didn't make it smaller. It's not an 8x, although you could probably put 30.5 on an 8x5 or 8x11 sheet of paper. I don't think because of the verbiage required in 30.6 and 7, you can put that on an 8.5 by 5, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's got to be a little bit bigger sign.
There's actually a gas station locally that someone had shared in OCT a few days ago, where it was one was a blue piece of paper, one was a pink piece of paper that had the 30.5, one in English, one in Spanish, had barely 1 inch letters, and it was posted next to the door. And he's like, "Is this legal?" And it's like you're walking in, you're not expecting to see a pink and blue piece of paper that's just kind of printed out and taped onto the door. So you're thinking, whatever, some kind of whatever sign. So it's not the professional signs that we're expecting to see like before. It's just these kind of lean to whatever BS signs. And even then, when they say it has to be conspicuous and noticeable by the public, but it doesn't give any definition of what conspicuous is or exactly, because it says it has to be by the front door, but there's a lot of them where we're seeing them inside the front door, certain areas where you may not see them that, oh, it's conspicuous enough, but there's no definition to it.
Right. All right. So we're over our time. Jim, I'm going to give you some time to, let people know where they can find you, what kind of things you talk about on your channel, anything you want to close up with. And then I'm going to answer these 2 questions and then I'll close up.
Yeah, it's simple. Not So Slim Jim's a channel because I'm Jim and I'm not slim. I got a channel on YouTube. I got a Facebook page, basically just covers the stuff I do on YouTube, mostly firearms related stuff, firearms law. I cover Texas mostly, but I do national stuff as well. I cover some important 2A cases, and every now and then I cover some cool gun stuff. But that's pretty much the extent of my channel. So back to CJ.
All right. Thank you, Jim. All right. Any upcoming open carry events? Guys, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I have stepped back almost completely from activism. I have no idea what Open Carry Texas is doing other than what I personally do. And the only thing that I'm making time for that I personally do is sending letters to municipalities who have violated the law by posting signs and stuff like that. So I really don't know if you're on Facebook in the Open Carry Texas Facebook group. You can find out there if something's going on. Go to your local group. When I do get back, we are going to completely reorganize Open Carry Texas. We're just going to redo it when I've got time to come back. We're going to redo the board. We're going to try and create a paid membership so that you guys can take part in who's on the board and those kinds of things. But other than that, I really don't know what rally. I know there's an event coming up here locally in Bell County on, is it tomorrow or next week? Oh crap. But anyway,
it's anything anymore.
It's like the Marvin Lewis guy. Lewis guy's birthday is tomorrow, I think it is. And so we're going to go down to 2 o'clock, I think. 2 o'clock, we're going down to the Justice Center in Belton. And we're going to essentially protest on behalf of Marvin Lewis guy, who's been sitting in jail for almost 8 years now without a trial for defending himself against a no-knock raid where he killed a police officer, unfortunately. But doesn't matter. He's in jail and he shouldn't be. So that's the only thing I do know of is here in Belton at the Justice Center tomorrow. Last thing, Marbury versus Madison, doesn't that nullify most unconstitutional statutes? I know a lot of people like to pull out that one line from Marbury versus Madison, but what people need to recognize under jurisprudence, which is under case law, is that you have to read anything that you read in a case has to be read in context of that case. All right. No, Marbury versus Madison didn't necessarily nullify all unconstitutional laws. I mean, you can say that it did, but you still have to argue whether or not a law is unconstitutional. You can't just say, well, this law is nullified. I mean, that's the courts, unfortunately, have to decide whether or not a law is unconstitutional. That's not for each and every one of us to figure out. Now, we can argue that. That's why lawyers get paid so much. Oh, we lost your volume again. Can't hear you. Nope. All right, well, we lost Jim. Perfect. Anyway, I'm closing up anyway, so it doesn't matter. But no, I mean, I look, Marbury versus Madison is one of the most boring reads. We spent so much time on Marbury versus Madison in my first con law class, and I learned a lot about, because actually having to read that case, because I used to think the same thing. I used to use that little quote about laws repugnant to the Constitution or not laws, or whatever the exact quote was. But it's, even if it does mean that, even if you can say it does mean that, you still have to determine, well, is this law unconstitutional? And the only way to do that, unfortunately, is through challenging that law and getting a court to say so. So anyway, we're going to close up. Jim's having issues here, so he can't get his volume. But we were done anyway. You guys keep following. I did get the Open Carry Texas website back up and running. We could use some donations that we're going to start saving up, so that once I do get back, we're going to have to spend a lot of money to reboot everything. So if you can just become a small time donor, $2.23. If you're a 223 guy, $5.56 for 556, $7.62, 7.62. Be a high caliber donor, the donor of your choice. Make a monthly donation to Open Carry Texas at opencarrytexas.org. Help us to continue in these fights. We do still, even though we've got these laws passed, there's still a lot of work to do. There are still municipalities that are violating the laws, and we have to send letters and notices. That takes time. In addition, if they ignore our letters and notices, well, then we've got lawsuits. What's Jim saying there? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jim says thank you. All right, you guys, take care. Be safe. Be free. Let me see if this video uploaded. I'm going to end with this awesome video. So you guys take care. We'll see you next time.
Motherfucker, goddamn it, again. Oh.